Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Frankie Corrado, Jamie Noodles, McLennan, a mail-it in Friday. Big hour. We got Bill Shaikin of the LA Times on the greatness of Shohei Ohtani. That's coming up later this hour. Mike Johnson will join us here momentarily. The Leafs will be in action this weekend, a couple of exhibition games, and I guess going to Ottawa soon. And how many more years are you going to be playing in that building? Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how long it's going to take them for, shovels in the ground and to actually build this new rink. But big news this week. It sounds like they've secured that deal, and it's just a matter of time. And
it would be nice to get it going. I mean, that's
get a
the
rocking
thing.
out there. Come on.
Well, yeah, I think Calgary, I can't remember what the timeline in Calgary is, but it took them forever to get the new rink sorted out. Now they're going to, I believe, their shovels in the ground, but you're looking at 3-4 years. So I would imagine it's probably all of that, 3-4 years, 5 years type of thing, working backwards from that, where you're going to have a new arena and facility closer to the city. I think
it's exciting, man.
It is. It's a win-win.
A huge win if you're a fan, in Calgary, like you said, in Ottawa. We haven't had a new stadium here in Toronto, I guess, since maybe BMO Field, I guess, would be the one that kind of created the most buzz in recent years. And I don't think we're going to get a new one here for a long time because they're investing hundreds of millions of dollars into Scotiabank Arena to, I think, upgrade that fan experience, whatever that means. Yeah. And Rogers Center, they just pumped in, tons of money into that. So that's not going anywhere anytime soon. But it's really cool that they're going to get downtown. And, that's a building that's had a lot of history. Like the Battle of Ontario was played out of that. Matthews had his 4 goals to start his career there, obviously, if you're a Leaf fan. And we'll see what comes of it.
Lost in a Stanley Cup final to Anaheim,
right? 07,
right?
Yeah.
Like they went to the Eastern Conference Final against Pittsburgh. That was in 2017. So there's been some big games, some big moments that have been played there. It's great for the fans. It's also great for the fans because of the opposing players and what they're going to experience when this new arena is up and running and they go play in Ottawa. Because the Canada experience for an opposing player, it's not exactly like a lot of the other cities that you go to in the NHL, where you fly in, you hop on the bus, you go downtown, and you're in this metropolis with all these great restaurants. Like, Canada's a nice town. If you live there,
it's a suburb,
if you're an opposing player, you go to a hotel that's kind of in an industrial park. There's nowhere to walk. There's nowhere to go. You go to this rink. There's nothing around it. You play. You leave. You have no idea what the city looks like. You have no idea what the vibe in Ottawa is like. So I think, opposing players might have a skewed view of the city and the market, and it's an awesome city. Ottawa's a great place to go visit, and now opposing players will have a chance to experience that more than they would in Canada.
I think they built the rink in the wrong spot. That's it. I've said this, and I've maintained this through. If you look at the National Hockey League and teams that have had some issues, Florida built the rink in the wrong spot. Yeah, they won a Stanley Cup, but on a Tuesday night in November, it's been lean there for years. Carolina, it took them years to get sorted out. They got sorted out. Arizona's lost their team now. They built it way the hell out of town. Same thing. Ottawa, Canada. If you live any type of close to downtown, you need dense population so that you can have walk-up people, so you can entertain. Like, to me, if you're staying downtown, if you're traveling to Ottawa and you want to entertain, you got to take a 40-minute cab ride out if you want to have a few drinks out to Canada. And you're not going to do that 3 times a week on a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday if they have home games. I love the building. I love the people around there. But I think it just makes more sense for it to be in LeBreton Flats. It's just closer to downtown.
Yeah, and obviously new ownership immediately got the wheels in motion.
Yeah.
And found a way to make it work. So big news out in Ottawa. I referenced it last hour, Josh Norris, who's a big storyline for them. And they need him. Like, they need him, and he's healthy, but he's not partaking in the scrimmage, which I don't know exactly what that means, but I read or heard Travis Green say that they expect Norris to be a full participant in training camp, yet that's not necessarily the case if he's not scrimmaging.
That's not a full participant then.
No, you're not.
Like
if you can't go through a scrimmage, that means you're worried you might get hit or something could happen that could put you in a bad spot. That's not a good sign.
Considering I read yesterday Travis Green's comments saying that he thought that Josh Norris was one of the best players on the ice. He was flying, apparently. All of a sudden today, not a participant. So you're wondering if it's them being cautious. You know, it just sends up a red flag that's concerning into day 2 of training.
Yes, considering his history. Right?
Correct.
Josh Norris he's a really good player, but he's had
Awesome.
so many
Yeah.
issues in the shoulders, and it just
Yeah.
it seems to constantly be lingering with him, and that's always a concern, because especially if you're a team like Ottawa, you need everything you can get out of every player in order for you to turn the tide here and start moving in a better direction. Here's Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. What do you read into the Norris situation and the importance of him having a big impact on Ottawa this year if they're actually going to make the playoffs?
Yeah, not good, obviously. Noodles knows it well. We've kind of been tracking him. And you understand why he's doing it, why they'd be cautious, why they would take it slow, because he has other times in this comeback or the last few years said he's 100% healthy, and then he goes and plays and something happens and he's not 100% healthy. My only thing is, guys, like, I know scrimmages are intense and you don't want to ever ask him to back off, but if Josh Norris is playing in an Ottawa Senators scrimmage, nobody should hit him hard, ever. I don't care if you're a rookie trying to make the team. Like, you know what he's out there, and you could probably allow him to get sort of bumped and hit on his terms before what? You're going to throw him his first contact is going to be in a game where nobody will ever lay up? I don't know if that's a great idea either. So I get the caution. I get the, taking it slow, but it still is concerning because he's had, 3 different shoulder surgeries, plenty of time to rehab it. This coming from a guy myself who had 3 shoulder surgeries of my own. I've talked to Josh a lot about it and the rehab and all the rest of it, but it's not good because he's too good. And the other problem is, Hayes, is that if they don't know if he's healthy or not, they have to have his salary available, right? It's not like they can just say, okay, he's not going to play this year, we can spend that money elsewhere. His money's always on the books because he might be playing, he might come back, and so you need him to play and play well.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, Norris probably needs to get some kind of resistance, Johnny. Like, I feel like part of the reconditioning is actually feeling someone hit you and how that process goes. And I guess if they don't have Norris, how concerned would you be about the start of the season for the Sens? Because that's been such a huge problem for years now with them, and this was going to be the year that they could start with Stützle, Norris, and Pinto down the middle with all the other additions that have been made on this team.
Yeah, I mean, it would be far more ideal to have a fully healthy Josh Norris, but Pinto as a second-line center is no slouch, right? Like, he's a pretty good player after a more normal summer and without any of the gambling stuff floating around him. Like, I expect him to be a potential breakout player this year, especially if Norris can't play. So, yeah, it's important, but talk to all teams around the league. There's dozens and dozens of players that are impact good players that are not going to be available to start the year. You can't use it as an excuse. They have plenty of players available that are healthy, that are capable of keeping Ottawa in the playoff picture, getting off to a better start, things they haven't done in years past. I think, to me, Frankie, it's really about how Travis Green can impact the way they play. They have talent. They have lots of talent to score goals, but they don't play like a team that is going to win a lot. Like, they're just a little too loose, a little too careless, a little too casual. And that's on Travis Green to change it. If they change that, whether Josh Norris is there or not, they'll be successful. If they don't, I don't care if Ullmark's in net, Hasek, McLennan, you name it. They're not going to win because they have had other good goalies, but they don't play well in front of them and they don't give them a chance.
Well, thanks for the shout-out, John.
Attaboy, you and Hasek, Noodles. I
want
love
nothing
that
but Vezina Trophy candidates and winners in my conversation.
That's a Jennings,
right in there.
Jennings duo, Hasek, McLennan in 96. Jennings.
Yeah, there you go. But you know what? Honestly, that's the one thing I was thinking about it when you brought it up, Hayes, is Ottawa, they don't need anything negative around their team. They need to hit the ground running. You've made some moves in the offseason. We've talked about it, how tough the Atlantic is. But you almost have to have a plan A and plan B going, okay, if Norris isn't going to be available, you can't just say, okay, the season's done. You have to have, like Ridley Gregg slides in there. Like you say, Shane Pinto moves around. You've got other players. Ostapchuk, does he make the team this year? Big, strong. I think he's wing, centerman, that type of – he can play both. but you have to have a contingency plan, and you can't go, okay, well, we've seen this before. That's it. We're going to have another injury-plagued season. There can't be built-in excuses. Josh Norris is a hell of a player, but they have to play. If he's not available to the team, they have to play without him and play very, very well. And I think that's where Travis has to get his head wrapped around, and the guys in the dressing room as well. Josh Norris, to me, I would be thinking is a bonus if he's available to play.
Yeah, but Noodles, don't you think if your job, like obviously, if he's not healthy, if it hurts, if he's not quite strong, fair enough, take all the time you need. But if you think you're healthy, as an athlete, like you want to be out there. You want to be out there for yourself, to show yourself, okay, I can get hit, I can take face-offs, I can fall awkwardly, I'm fine, and give yourself the confidence, but also show your team, coach, management, teammates, like, boys, I'm in it. I'm fine. Look, I'm every day. I'm playing. I'm grinding. I'm getting in the corners. Whatever it is he's going to be doing. Yeah, and so I would imagine Josh Norris shares that sentiment. The fact that he's not playing tells you that he's probably not yet 100% healthy, if he ever will get 100% healthy after all the procedures on his shoulder.
With Mike Johnson, our TSN Hockey analyst. So Jake McCabe at Leaf Camp was speaking on his situation. He's got a year left on his deal. Yeah, and he's like, I want to stick around. Love it here. Now, he's not a young guy. Tanev's not a young guy. Morgan Riley's not young anymore. Ekman Larsson's not young. Would there be any concern for you that if they do decide to commit to him, and it kind of sounds like that's the move that they're going to make here, that this Maple Leaf defense is pretty long in the tooth, and I guess will only continue to get older as these contracts play out?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be much nicer to have a nice whippersnapper 23-year-old ready to sign for 5 or 6 or 7 years. Like, that would be preferential, but they don't have that, right? Sandin's gone, and Liljegren's not quite there yet, and, they don't have that blue-chip guy available to them right now, so you got to do what you got to do. What will be interesting is that we kind of forget, Jake McCabe, if I'm not mistaken, his cap hit to Toronto was only $2 million. Right? Because they had Chicago retain half of it when they made that trade. What's Jake McCabe worth? Like, so he's 30-something years old. He's going to get 4 or 5 years. It's got to be $25 million, no? He's a $5 million defenseman for sure, right? In today's market with a $95 million cap, like that's a bit of a extra kicker on what it's cost the Leafs to have him, even though he's a $4 million player prior to. He's just $2 for Toronto. That's going to be another part of the money allocation going forward. He's going to be $3 or $4 million more, because I think he could go on the open market and get whatever. What did Matt Roy get? A contract like that, 5 years, $6 million per year. That's what good top 4 defensemen get. And Jake McCabe brings a little something to Toronto. Like a little bit of that physicality that maybe not everyone has always had playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the back end. He brings an element that I think they need, and sort of that grittiness. So I see why they like him. And then it's almost nice to hear like another guy, like, I want to stay. Like, for all the talk about everyone to leave, the American-born player, and he still wants to stay in Toronto for all its ups and downs. So that's a good sign for the Leafs.
If you can get the McCabe extension done and it comes in at around 5 or just a little more than 5, you have to get that done, because as we saw in the offseason, those guys like Matt Roy, like Esa Lindell just signed his extension just under $6 million. Like, there's a lot of demand for a player like Jake McCabe. So if you can get it done, get it done. And you know what? I think he fits the way Berube is going to want to play. And all we've been hearing now is north-south hockey. That's been one of the big buzzwords, coming out of Leafs camp. Johnny, just let us know what north-south hockey means to you, and if you think the Leafs can play that style of hockey right away.
So north-south hockey means, to me, that you make, we know that going laterally is more effective for offense. I think everyone knows that. But there's a risk involved in going laterally. And I think north-south hockey means we defer to the safer play more frequently than the high-risk, high-reward play. I think that's simply it. You can talk about being physical in the forecheck. I get it. But basically, I think for this Leaf team, what it means from Craig Berube is like, okay, if that's not a guaranteed play, that's not like a 90% likelihood of success, then let's make the safer play. Let's go north. Like, let's push it ahead. Let's get along the boards and go chase it and get the puck in a better position. And that sort of mentality Now, that doesn't say never make a lateral play. Obviously, they got some of the best players in the world. They got to be empowered to go make offensive plays. But it's just a recalibration of sort of the risk-reward decision-making process that everybody on the team goes through. I think with Sheldon Keefe and Kyle Dubas, they were very much, as we know, pass it, look for plays, go laterally, regroup, whatever it is. Don't give up possession. I think Berube might be give up possession if you have to, but put in a spot where I have a good chance of getting it back and not hurting ourselves. Now, I think everyone who's played has heard those kind of phrases from coaches. Can this team do it? Of course they can. Like, the easiest thing to do is like sort of dumb it down and go north-south, right? The question is, how long does it take and what steps are required to force, especially the top guys, to buy in? Like, can Mitch, can Willie, can Austin, can Tavares, can Max Domi, can they make that adjustment quickly, or will they still sort of want to defer back to the way they played for 6, 7, 8 years, where they make the plays whatever they see, regardless of sort of the risk involved in them?
Johnny, we haven't had you on to talk about Willie Nylander at center ice. What do you make of it? How do you feel about that? And if you like it or not, do you think that it has to be an extended amount of time to give it a real hard run here, especially early in the season?
Yeah, it has to. I mean, Willie said it himself, right? Like, he lasted a game and a half. That's not a trial for guys who played center in 7 years to make the jump in the NHL, no matter how talented he is. That's just like a spot duty and get him out of there. So if they're going to give it a look, and it sounds like they are, then he needs all of training camp, several weeks of the regular season, different situations, different opponents, different roles and responsibility to see how it goes. Now, do I like it? So I get the hesitation because the guy just put up 100 points virtually last year playing on the wing. He's one of the best wingers in the world, getting paid like that. So why would you change it? He clearly is thriving in the other position. But center's more important than wing. We know this. And the Leafs need, if Tavares is going to slide gracefully into the third-line center role, which he would be one of the best third-line center in the league if he's able to do that, then there's a gaping hole in the second-line center spot. And if William Nylander can fill it, then all of a sudden the Leafs have three really good centermen. They have plenty of wingers with Pacioretty and with Robertson around, plus Nyes, plus Marner, Yarncroke, Domi. Like, they have the 6, 7 good wingers to play with three centermen if you can set it up that way. So I get why they're trying it, but they got to try it, and they got to give them plenty of run. Now, I don't know if Berube will be the easiest coach to be sort of learning on the fly with, but that will be William Nylander's challenge over the next, let's say, 6 weeks? He probably gets a run at this?
Yeah, I think you have to, for sure. And it sounds like, all the parties involved are in on it, including the front office. So I think really might have spearheaded the whole thing. Brad Treliving
because they couldn't get a second-line center, right?
Right, exactly.
That's why they couldn't fill him out. Like, last year, they're hoping that Fraser Minton would be the third-line center, and he wasn't quite maybe up to it at that point in his career. But, the front office would be behind it, because if it works, it solves a big headache for them, because they know they need one more center, ideally. If they don't get one, if Nylander doesn't work and it has to go the other way, whether it's Tavares at number 2 and Camp at number 3, whatever is going on, they'll still be really good. But they'll be potentially better if Nylander works at the second-line center.
Do you think that'll be the case? Like, if he plays center, he's definitively the second center, and that means Tavares is either third-line center or a winger?
So if you were to ask Wayne Gretzky, he'll be definitively the second-line center. If you're asked Dave Poulin, Tavares might be the second-line center, because he might take on more defensive posturing. Like, Austin Matthews, the way I see it, Hayes, will do everything all the time, right? Because that's what he does. And then if it works, Nylander will get offensive zone starts, preferred matchups, out after icing, all that kind of stuff to capitalize on his offensive nature. And I think Tavares will get a lot of defensive zone stuff because of his face-off, because of his diligence, and take on some of the tougher matchups, as long as he's not a super speedy player, and play more defensively. So I don't know, 2A, 2B, but I think Nylander, if you go by offense, Nylander will have the more offensive slant to his line.
So we were discussing, Frankie and I did a hit with Gino that is up online today, projecting the top 50 list that'll come out next week, and we did reveal Alex Ovechkin is on the outside for the first time in his career. He's not in the top 50. And putting that aside, and you can comment on that, but he's 42 goals away from probably the most celebrated record you can have. An unthinkable record. Yet I don't get the sense that anyone believes it's going to happen this year. Like there's really, it's almost as if the buzz has been, like it's pre-ordered for 2025, 2026. Do you think that's fair to Ovi? And if you feel the same way I do in terms of kind of a lack of buzz and lack of expectation that he'd actually pass that record this year, what does he have to do in order to create the buzz and get people thinking, actually, we might see it this year?
Yeah, you'd think the countdown to breaking one of the most historic records in all of hockey would be front and center all year long, right? I think because of how he struggled a little bit to start last year, you think, I don't know if it's going to happen. But we've all made the mistake. Listen, Hayes, I think it was 2 years ago, the season preview, I said Obi's goal total like 38, and he had 50, right? Like, so I've been wrong, sort of thinking he was going to slow down a couple of years. Even the second half of last year, he was much better after a very slow start. So, like, he's such a freak of nature goal scorer. It feels like even if he plays poorly, he'll get 34 goals. You know what I mean? Even if the team's not very good, he'll get 34 goals. So is it a stretch to think that he could be better? I think that Washington team actually is going to be quite a bit better than they were last year. They did some. If Pierre-Luc Dubois plays well, that's a big part of it. But I think they're going to be better. So every empty netter, he's going out there. Every power play is playing full 2 minutes. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he does not get it. I bet he gets very close. I would say it's probably even money. Straight up even money, whether he gets 42 goals or not. I think that's just because that's what he does, and he always has.
Well, didn't I read that he had it tweaked his back already or something like that? He left skate. I thought I read that yesterday.
That's my concern. He's 39.
Well, there's that.
What's he doing in the offseason? Some of the pictures you see in the offseason.
So big, doesn't he?
Dude, he's massive.
Well, he carries weight to start off with. He carries, like, he plays at 240. Like, he carries weight as it is. And listen, the guy is an absolute animal. But he used to be shredded, and he's not shredded anymore. But he still carries that weight. Like, it'll be interesting to see at some point where, I mean, Father Time has caught up with him, but he still can get around. He still can shoot it. It just, there was that one picture. I don't know if that was fake news or it was touched up. Like, he looked pretty rough on the beach there.
Yeah, like, he looked like he took about 3 months off.
Yeah. He wasn't on the P90X Beachbody program.
No.
That's for, I see him play soccer. But you know what? We talked about the goal scoring, but maybe sort of as impressive is that the guy never misses games. Like I don't know what the number is, but he's played like 98% of the games he's been available to play in. So, if he doesn't stay healthy, that's the sort of the thing you take for granted, that he'll play 78, 80, 82 games because he generally has. But, 40's 40. Like, we all don't feel quite the same at 40 as we did when we were 30 or 25. So that'll be the biggest buzzkill, Hayes, is if he's hurt. If he misses the first 10, 12 games, they're like, okay, he's not going to get there. But if he gets off to a good start, and then after 20 games, we're sitting there towards the end of November, and he's got, 10, 11 goals? Like, he's sort of on a 40-goal pace. Mm-hmm. The longer he can go on that 40-goal pace for every other game, the more the sort of energy and the interest will build as he goes along.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. And, I mean, the way this guy has operated his whole career, like you said, I mean, it's tough to bet against him. All right, Johnny, we'll leave it there. We'll do it again early next week.
Next week, we'll talk about exhibition games. Are you kidding me?
Yes. Full breakdown.
Perfect.
Let's go. Breakdown. Can't wait. See you, buddy.
All right, boys.
Mike Johnson joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and Grand Highlander in stock and ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com. Luke Wilson and Al's brother, or Al's brother and Luke Wilson is how I should phrase that, coming up at around 6 o'clock with more picks for Week 3. Look back on the win last night by the Jets and by Hayes and Bro. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel, still to come as well. And Bill Shaikin coming up with the LA Times on the phenomenon that is known as Shohei Ohtani. We'll get into that next. And Fridays brought to you by Boston Pizza, the best place for any family meal. Plus, for the month of September, kids eat free with minimum purchase when you dine in. So grab the kids and hustle into your local BP tonight. Bill Shaikin in the LA Times here momentarily. Al's brother and Luke Wilson in about a half an hour. And more picks on Week 3. And big Jets win. Big Jets cover last night. More on the Leafs and the Blue Jays moving forward here as well. The Jays are down at the Trop playing the Rays this week. But the biggest story, I would say, in pro sports over the last 24 hours is undoubtedly the greatness of Shohei Ohtani on display. Not that you needed a game like last night, right? Like last night was more about the 50 and 50, the fact that he hit 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases, something we've never seen in the history of baseball, which is pretty astonishing when you're considering how long the sport's been around and how many great players have been around. For him to establish a record is so tough to do. Because generally it's the bad records, right? Like the bad record we've been buzzing about is the White Sox, right? Like they're going to pass the 62 Mets and finish with 121 losses. And it's just been more about that. Like, I've never seen anyone do that before. It'd be so horrible. It'd be so awful. Where this is just nothing but positivity and greatness on display. But it's not only that he hit his 50th home run or stole his 50th base. It's that the game, some people are describing that as the greatest game ever played by anybody in baseball history. It's just an incredible stat line.
Pretty impressive.
6 for 6, 3 home runs, 2 doubles, a single, 10 RBI. He stole 2 bases. Like, that's what's crazy. He had 17 total bases, and he stole a couple more. It's just crazy how good this guy is.
You beat the mascot up, and that's a cherry on top. I'm telling you, that could be arguably the best game people have seen. I mean, modern day for sure.
Well, exactly. I mean, I don't know how to compare it to anything else. Like, unless he was pitching, I guess, last night.
And you know what's going to be amazing is, that's the Marlins. We know what the Marlins are. But when he does something like that in the playoffs against a really good team, like if that's against the Braves or the Mets, like that's going to be, I don't know, that's goes towards his legacy as well when he does it in the playoffs.
Building on it, and like you said earlier, Frank, he's actually going to get a chance to play in the playoffs, which will be very refreshing because we know the Dodgers are going there. Here's LA Times MLB columnist Bill Shaikin back on Overdrive. How you doing, Bill?
Good afternoon. How are you?
Oh, we're doing very well. We're just reveling in the greatness of Shohei Ohtani, and he was almost a Blue Jay. Almost a Blue Jay, Bill. I don't know if you heard that. But that could have been happening against the Rangers yesterday as opposed to against the Marlins. But
has the plane landed yet?
The plane is still in the air. We're waiting for confirmation on when it actually lands at Pearson. But I believe it's still in the air. You obviously, you've been in L.A. a long time. So when he was with the Angels, I'm sure you covered Ohtani closely. And you knew what was coming when he showed up here. But when you consider his translator gets arrested, steals money from him. He can't pitch this year. It's a new team. The fact that he has done what he has done, has it surprised you at all that he's been this great with the LA Dodgers?
I think the one thing that surprises you a little bit is that there were so many other factors. I think you alluded to the fact that the season started by finding out that his most trusted associate for years was stealing millions of dollars from him. Also, here's a guy that had signed the richest contract in North American sports history. Also, he's going to a team that expects to win because it wins every year. He's never been in the playoffs before. The Angels haven't been in the playoffs since, I'm hesitant to say, but 2014. It's been a while. So he gets to play on this grand stage. And as much as everybody said, well, with the Angels, he was pretty much carrying his team on his shoulders because Mike Trout was hurt a lot. With the Dodgers, it's like an all-star team. But Mookie Betts missed a lot of time this year. Max Muncy missed a lot of time this year. They kind of have a revolving door pitching staff right now on the Dodgers. So guess what? Shohei Ohtani carried the Dodgers.
So if he's pitching again next season, do you think he'll be able to hit like this, or do you think there'll be a drop-off just based on his workload and then maybe having to rest him?
I would be a fool to say there's something that Shohei Ohtani can't do. I think the one thing he's learned this year, because he's had the time, because as you said, he wasn't pitching, is how to read pitchers, how to take more effective leads, basically how to become a good base stealer, which he wasn't. Being fast and being a good base stealer, as we know, are two different things. So now he has that body of knowledge. I don't think he's going to lose it. Maybe he doesn't run as much because he wants to save his legs for the strength that they're going to need to pitch into the 6th and 7th and 8th innings of a start. But maybe he will. We don't know. Baseball's been played for 150 years, and nobody has had a 50-50 season until him yesterday.
Should he pitch again? And let's say he doesn't pitch again. Is he worth the value of that contract as just a hitter?
I'm going to call that question moot at this point because he's going to pitch again, barring another injury, but he's already back on the rehab trail. I don't know that they sign him to that contract if all he can do is hit. But on the other hand, all he can do is hit, and he will probably be unanimous most valuable player, with apologies to my friends in New York. He should be unanimous because, again, here's something that nobody's ever done. He gave the Dodgers a dimension of slugging. He gave the Dodgers a dimension of speed, and he did it pretty much every single day.
We're Bill Shaikin of the LA Times. So last night's game in particular, you look at the stat line, it's just absurd. I mean, 6 for 6, 3 home runs, couple of doubles, 17 total bases, all these RBI, all these runs, couple of stolen bases. I mean, it's tough in baseball considering how many games have been played over the course of 150 years to ever really single in on one and say that's the greatest thing we've ever seen. But you've covered baseball for a long time. You've seen a lot of great players. Where would that rank for you? Is that at the top of your list, considering what he did last night?
I think offensively it had to be. I mean, I saw there's a company called Stats that produces, as you might imagine, stats.
Yep.
And so they put out yesterday that in MLB history, there's only been one player who had a game with 10 RBI, a game with 6 hits, a game with 5 extra base hits, a game with 3 homers, and a game with 2 stolen bases at any point during their career, just doing all 5 of those things. The one player who's done it in MLB history is Shohei, and he did them all in one game.
Crazy. I saw some stat on like a wins above replacement as well, that last night, that game alone was worth 0.7 wins above replacement. And there are guys in this league that are at like 0.6 on the year, negative wins above replacement. One game, he supplied more win value than a lot of guys that are playing every single day in the majors. It's pretty incredible. And yet, as you mentioned off the top, Bill, like with the Dodgers, like this is, I'm sure, incredible. I'm sure the fan base is embracing it and should feel incredibly fortunate. The other 29 markets would love to see it. But it's not about what you do necessarily during the regular season when you're a Dodger fan. It's can you show up in the playoffs? Can you win a World Series? When he resets in a couple of weeks, how important do you think it is for him to hit the ground running and making a first impression in terms of playoff performance this year?
When the Dodgers get to the playoffs in a couple weeks, they will be reminded constantly of 2 things. One is that they've gone out in their first series the last couple years to one team that they finished 22 games better than in the regular season, and another game that they finished 16 games better than in the regular season. The other thing they'll be reminded of is that Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, who were clearly their top offensive players last year, had 1 hit in the playoffs combined last year. So, they're going to need some hitting. They're going to need Shohei. And, World Baseball Classic is obviously a small sample size, but he knows a little bit about rising to an occasion.
You just mentioned Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. Like, those guys are legitimate superstars in Major League Baseball, like the best of the best. And Shohei plays on these guys, it's the same team as them, and he outshines them by so much. Like, does that kind of put it into perspective just how incredible Shohei was, that like he plays with 2 of the best players in the league, and not only like he's miles above everyone else, but he's also miles above these guys that he plays with basically every single day?
Yeah, Mookie Betts had an incredible year this year. I mean, he's been basically a right fielder his whole career and a Gold Glove one. Very, very good. Played some second base last year. When the Dodgers came to camp this year, Gavin Lux was supposed to be the shortstop. Didn't work out. Dodgers said, okay, Mookie, give it a shot. It's not like he had been a shortstop in the major leagues, and he played there. He's that good. He can just pick up shortstop on the fly. And yet, when Mookie Betts got hurt and then came back from the injured list, Mookie's been a leadoff hitter pretty much his whole career. And again, he's been very good at that. Obviously a multiple-time All-Star. Who is leading off now for the Dodgers with both Shohei and Mookie in the lineup? It's Shohei. And when Mookie was asked about it, that's pretty much what he said. He goes, well, that's Shohei.
So this might be an unfair question or a little bit tainted of a question, but what's more impressive, Shohei's 50 and 50 or Bonds' 73? Now, you'd have to factor in the juice, but, I mean, Bonds hitting 73 was pretty impressive. Shohei's 50-50 or 51-51. What do you make of it?
I didn't see the Giants in the year Bonds hit 73 home runs.
What do you mean?
Well, a lot of what we do in terms of building up players and talking about how great they are is in the context of how they delivered their seasons. One of the knocks on Shohei with the Angels and one of the knocks on Mike Trout has been, well, this is great, but let's see you do it in October. And through no fault of Shohei's and no fault of Mike Trout's, they haven't been able to do that. Mike Trout has played in one playoff series in his entire Angel career, and the Angels didn't win a game. Shohei hasn't played in any, but legends are made in October. And, Barry Bonds is a great, great player. He might have been the best pure hitter that, has played in my lifetime. But he had a great World Series and the Giants lost. When the Giants won the 3 World Series, he wasn't part of that team. He had retired by then. So this is Shohei's chance in prime time to, I don't want to say make his case for the Hall of Fame. I kind of think he's already done that, because when you've done things that haven't been done in the entire history of a sport that's lasted a century and a half, Babe Ruth dabbled in pitching for a couple of years. He didn't make a career out of doing both. But if you want to burnish those credentials, October's the time to do it.
Well, there's been reports that Ohtani could be available to pitch in the playoffs. Are you buying that, Bill? And do you think the Dodgers will activate him to do that if the doctors say go ahead?
The Dodgers have gone from absolutely no freaking way, which is what they were most of the year, to, well, probably not. So they're clearly leaving the door open. His rehab progression, by all accounts, is going pretty well. Is he going to build up to become a starter in October, even if everything goes well? Can't see that. Could he come out of the bullpen? Well, that's what he did in the World Baseball Classic to win the title for Japan, striking out Mike Trout, actually, for the last out. Could he build up to an inning by the World Series if the Dodgers get there? I think the Dodgers are at least at the point where they're going to say, let's not rule it out. We don't think it's going to happen, but let's not rule it out. So that's where they are right now.
Pretty incredible to see that happen. Well, it's been a fun ride so far, and as we've been stating, the party in some ways is just about to begin. So enjoy that party, and thanks for doing this today, Bill. We appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Bill Shaikin of the LA Times. Yeah. I don't know. That'd be kind of cool to see him. I almost want to see him pitch more than I want to see him hit in the playoffs.
Really?
Yes, because the hitting, we've seen it all year. He's hit 51 home runs. He's obviously a great hitter. I expect he'll hit pretty well in the playoffs, but I know he's going to hit. It's the uncertainty of whether or not he'll pitch or not, how cool it would be to kind of look like have a Ricky Vaughn type vibe. Like, actually, they're going to use him tonight. Like, he's coming out in the 7th or the 8th or the 9th inning. It's just a Hollywood type of storyline. Yeah. The uncertainty of whether they'll do it. Will they do it? Wow, they're in a jam. They need to get out of this. Ohtani's coming out. Like, there's just nothing cooler than that, in my opinion.
I would just be so nervous watching it. Like, just watching him lean into one, like really lean into a fastball, I would cringe at that. Just, I don't know. Like, this guy's so valuable to your team, even if he's not a pitcher. there's a level of risk involved. That's all.
Of course.
Yeah, but do they bubble wrap him? That's the thing. Or do you just say, hey, you're not a pitcher anymore. You're a hitter and a base stealer. Like I think he is the complete package, but at some point, don't you think they will make him choose and go, you need to do one or the other for the longevity of your body?
I think so, and it's going to be hitting, clearly. Like, at some point, he's just going to be a hitter, no question. But I think that happens the last 4 or 5 years of the contract, but I think the first 4 or 5, he's going to pitch. And I think he probably wants to pitch and show people that he's still got it. All right, Luke Wilson coming up. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel, still to come as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Luke Wilson coming up in about 20 minutes on the greatness of Aaron Rodgers last night. The Jets 2-1. We'll look ahead to the rest of the slate of games in Week 3 in the NFL. Argos Hamilton tonight, big one tonight. Big game in the CFL. CFL on TSN tonight, Friday Night Football. I love it.
Yes.
Beautiful day in Toronto, beautiful night, beautiful weather in Southern Ontario, man. This week has been the nicest week of the year.
Yeah.
Like, period. End of story. Blue skies, beautiful weather, no breeze. It's just been incredible. It's baseball weather, yet we got hockey games this weekend. And, again, we got some big football games as well. And a number of things to get into the next hour. The Alex Nylander story is one we haven't really touched on at all. I don't think we mentioned his name.
I was going to bring him up yesterday. Like, I don't know. You guys weigh in on it. Like, why the hell would he sign here if he could have played in the NHL somewhere else?
I think I know. I don't think he was guaranteed a spot somewhere else. I think he was going to get a two-way deal somewhere else where he probably would have started in the minors. And I think to him, he looks at that and says, for starters, the Marlies will pay you more than every other team. So you'll take the AHL deal with the Marlies. You'll go to camp here in Toronto. Nick Robertson asks for a trade. Max Pacioretty's there on a PTO. Like, there are opportunities on the wing here if he has a good camp, and then if he plays well with the Marlies. So I think the door is still open to him in the NHL everywhere because he's on an AHL deal. He can sign wherever he wants, but I think it has to do with the money he'd be making with the Marlies and the opportunity here and, I don't know, maybe elsewhere.
Yeah. And listen,
That's fair.
He's free room and board here, right? Like, he's staying with Willie, and Willie's probably picking up the tabs on everything. So maybe you got to factor that into the finances as well. And, the Leafs have a good minor hockey system in terms of the amount of resources that they have down there. Yeah. Like, Frankie, you know this personally, and like Noodles, you're pretty in tight with a lot of people down there.
Coaching staff,
Coaching staff, like they have a lot of resources for an American Hockey League team.
Dude, we used to joke around when I was there. There were 30 teams in the NHL. We used to everyone used to say we're the 31st NHL team. Like, we probably had a bigger budget for some things than some NHL teams. I'm not even joking. Things like the breakfast, the lunch, the road trips, the hotels. Like, you take 2 buses on the road. You fly whenever you can. It's basically like an NHL team playing in the minors. And I think that's part of the allure of being a Marley, is that you're going to have every possible resource to be the best player you can and to ultimately get yourself back to the NHL.
Well, not to mention, you're all out of MasterCard, so you get the Leaf resources as far as player development, all of the, they have 84 people that work in player development. It's almost like every player gets their own person, and, you got trainers, and it's the place is more staffed up than anywhere I've ever seen. But it's impressive, and you get NHL resources as an AHL player or person right there, where, other teams don't have their AHL team sitting there, and they certainly don't have the bank like MLSE and the Leafs do. So you're right, Frankie, you lived it, first class. It is first class. I'm looking at it from, this guy seemed to make some headway as an NHL player last year. And I thought he had turned the corner of maybe potentially being an everyday guy. If that's not the case, you're right. Why not sign with the Marlies? But I thought maybe he had pushed past that and maybe get a low one-way. It didn't seem like that, I guess.
It probably wasn't there. I think he got $400,000 in the minors. Yeah. Like, that's an NHL deal, basically, right? And
good for him.
How do you say no to that?
Yeah, that's a good deal. And it's an opportunity, like, again, to be in a organization where they're going to have to learn who he is, But his brother being there, I'm sure will be helpful. Maybe will ease his mind in terms of just day-to-day living. And it would be a really cool story because I don't recall the last time there would have been brothers playing for the Maple Leafs. I'm not sure that's ever happened at the same
has there
time.
ever been brothers that played for the Leafs? That's
I don't know.
That's a trivia question on a Friday.
That would be
I
a
bet you
good
Joe
trivia.
from the Bridge knows that. In 1967, there were twin brothers. Or,
Right.
1945, there were twin brothers from a farm that came in and played for the Leafs for 3 games.
It
There'll be
wouldn't
something
be
like that.
shocking if back in the day that was the case. Like the Mahavlich brothers or something like that. Or I honestly don't know. But I'd like to see him play in a preseason game with Willie, and maybe give it a shot. Like give him a couple of shifts together, like that. That would be kind of cool to see. I don't know if Berube will do that. He probably won't. Not happening. You're going down to the minors. See you later.
Nylander, Domi. See how that line
That
plays.
would be a cool
That
line.
would be fun. That would be some fun
a fun
hockey.
line. Get that going in the preseason. Come on, Craig. All right, final hour coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.